your chocolate chip cookies. Boring, basic, uninspired. Brown butter chocolate chip cookies, amazing, talented, spectacular, show-stopping, never the same. And I'm gonna teach you how to make them. So brown butter cookies are essentially the exact same as regular chocolate chip cookies. However, the key ingredient that changes makes them worlds better than regular chocolate chip cookies, and that is the browned butter. Browned butter is when you take regular unsalted butter and you cook it on the stovetop just to toast the milk solids in the butter. Your butter is made up of water and milk fat, so when you brown the butter, you toast the milk solids, and that gives it this really nice caramelly, like indulgent depth of flavor that is not in regular butter. It sounds super intimidating, browning your butter, and the first time you do it, it can be a little tricky to know when to stop and not burn your butter, but I'm here to teach you how to do it, walk you through all of it, and show you that it's really not that hard. After I teach you how to brown butter, you're gonna wanna put brown butter in everything. Your cookies, your cakes, your frostings, your toast. I don't see why not. So without further ado, I have all my ingredients scaled here. I have my brown butter ready in this Pyrex. And before we get started with the rest of the cookies, I am going to walk you through really quick how to brown butter.
So go ahead and place your butter in a small saucepan on a medium to medium low heat. You can definitely kick it up to a higher heat if you'd like. It will melt faster, but if you don't trust yourself to catch it before it burns, I would just leave it on like a medium low heat. All of the milk solids will eventually sink to the bottom, but it's gonna look pretty cloudy on the top. So just keep stirring it, keep an eye on it, and let it melt. As it continues to cook, it will eventually erupt in little bubbles in the center, and it'll start a nice healthy boil. At this point, don't go anywhere, keep an eye on it, things are gonna happen kind of fast. So once it starts boiling, you're gonna wanna continuously stir it because all of the milk solids have sunk into the bottom. So in stirring it, you'll be able to move all of the cloudiness from the top and keep an eye on the milk solids as they start to change color. You'll also prevent them from burning this way. So keep an eye on it and keep stirring it. Eventually, most of the cloudiness will dissipate, and if you can see that yellowish white looking mass on the bottom, those are the milk solids. You really want to make sure that you keep an eye on those. So at this point, you're just going to be babysitting it and stirring it to make sure that it doesn't boil over or burn, and watching for the milk solids to change color. You'll also definitely be able to notice a change in how the butter smells after some time. It'll go from just being melted butter to like a really nice, nutty, caramelly melted butter kind of a smell. So once you get closer to that kind of a smell, you're almost done. At this point, we're still cooking the butter, and the stirring is just us moving around the bubbles at the top so that we can get a better look at the bottom. So you can definitely see at the bottom how the milk solids have gone a toasty brown color. Keep stirring it and keep an eye on it. It will burn in like 5 seconds if you don't take it off soon enough. So you're looking for a really nice, dark, caramelly amber kind of a color. Kind of like if you were making caramel in the first place, you're going for something kind of dark. Don't be afraid to go too dark with it. Unless it's black, you haven't burnt it, I promise. But definitely keep an eye on it because it can burn very quickly if you're not stirring it enough or if you walk away for just a second. Once you reach a color that you like, I was pretty happy with this dark brown color I achieved. Remove it from the heat and pour it into a heat-proof container. I left it in this Pyrex container. And you want to make sure you scrape everything in there. All of those brown butter solids, everything that was in the pan can go into your heat-proof container. You want to save all of it. Those brown butter solids are what's going to give you that really nice, rich flavor in your cookies. So definitely hold on to all of that, set it aside, let it get to room temperature, and then it will be ready to use in whatever you need it for.
So you can make your brown butter like the night before or the day before or anything like that, and just leave it in the fridge to set up and solidify, and then you can just pull it out of the fridge maybe half an hour before you're ready to use it, because you do want it to solidify and set up and not be liquid melted butter anymore, but you want it to be softened butter pretty much. You want it to be just as soft as normal butter would be when you're making cookies regularly. Or you can do what I did. I just made it a couple of hours ago this morning, and I put it in the Pyrex container and I left it in the freezer for like an hour or so, like half an hour-ish maybe, just until it started to set up. And then I left it out at room temperature because it did get a little too hard. So to start off with these cookies, we're gonna pop the butter into the mixer and beat it on a low speed just until it's pliable and soft and fluffy. You do wanna make sure that you add the brown butter solids that are probably sitting at the bottom of the container, because that's what's gonna give you that really nice toasty caramel flavor. So don't throw those away, don't skim those out. You want those brown butter solids. All right, so I'm gonna let this beat and whip up until it is soft and fluffy, just like normal butter. So with the butter in the mixer, I'm gonna go ahead and add the sugars, both white and brown sugar, and we're gonna beat those together until they're soft and fluffy. So now that the butter and both sugars are creamed together, they're ready for the eggs. I've got 2 eggs at room temperature. We're gonna add them one at a time, making sure to mix really well in between. I've been practicing my one-handed cracks. I think I'm doing pretty well. Both eggs are in, everything is completely mixed together really well. I made sure to scrape the bottom of the bowl to make sure that everything actually was combined. We're gonna go ahead and add the vanilla and then move on to the dry ingredients, and then we're almost done. So in this bowl, I have my salt, my baking soda, and my flour. So we're just gonna give that a good whisk. And we're just gonna add dry ingredients slowly and mix it until it is just barely combined. So I went ahead and mixed the flour and the dry ingredients in, but only until it was like barely combined. Like there's still a little bit of flour spots in there, and that's because we're gonna add the chocolate chips now. So this is a combination of chocolate chips and chocolate chunks, partially because I need to use up what I had in my pantry, but also because I really like a variance in like chip. I really like having varying textures in the cookies, like chips and chunks and everything like that. Personally, if I had to choose, I would just put chunks in there because they're the same thing as chips. They're just like way bigger, I guess. And I like having a bite of chocolate. But these are semi-sweet. For brown butter chocolate chip cookies, I would definitely go towards something on the darker side. So like a semi-sweet or dark chocolate as opposed to like a milk chocolate, just because the darkness and the richness of something like this kind of a chocolate just goes really, really well with the caramel notes in the brown butter. So I'm gonna go ahead and add this in. And now because I just barely mixed the flour in before adding the chocolate chips, I was able to fully mix in the chocolate chips and get them fully incorporated without over mixing the dough. If you over mix the flour into the rest of the ingredients, you're gonna get something that's a little tougher. You're gonna have more gluten forming. So it's really important to mix just until the flour is completely incorporated and try not to go too far over that line. All right, so now I'm gonna teach you guys how to make your cookies pretty. So this has been sitting in the refrigerator for like 20 minutes. I wanted to let it stiffen up a little bit so that it would be easier to portion out into cookies. One of the easiest ways to make your cookies uniform and pretty is one of these babies. This is a portion scoop. It looks remarkably similar to an ice cream scoop, but it's a little bigger. It's meant to portion things out in uniform sizes. I got these off of Amazon because the ones that they sell at the grocery store are always too small for me, in my opinion. I don't want cookies that are gonna be like this big. Like it's just not enough. So this is a 2-ounce portion scoop. This is what I'm gonna be using today. I feel like 2 ounces is like the perfect amount. This one is like 1.5 ounces or 1.75 ounces, I believe. So it's a little smaller. This would also be a good size to use for cookies. I got these off Amazon. I'll link down below which ones these are so you can pick them up if you want. But a portion scoop is a really good thing to use because it ensures that not only are they the exact same size, but it gives it that nice rounded top too. So yeah. So I am just going to portion out a couple of cookies and make sure that I leave enough room in between all of them so that they have the chance to spread out in the oven. So another way to make your cookies really pretty and kind of like a hack to make your cookies really pretty is to add chocolate after the fact at this point. So there's already chocolate sitting at the top of all of these cookies just because of how the chips kind of integrate into the dough. But if you want to get those really pretty pools of chocolate that you see on like Instagram and stuff, this is how that is done. So I just took a bar of like really high quality chocolate. This is Lindt chocolate just because I had this in my pantry. But you can use like Ghirardelli or any kind of like nice bar of chocolate. And I just chopped it really roughly with a knife just to get like some nice chunks of varying sizes of chocolate. So at this point, I'll just like press a couple of pieces of chocolate into the top, just kind of randomly, wherever I feel like it's lacking. And this way you can also kind of control where the chocolate is and how much chocolate's on the top, and it gives it that really, really pretty look. Yeah. So I think these are ready for the oven. These are gonna go into a 375-degree oven for about 10 minutes or so. Keep an eye on them. And then I'm going to show you what to do with them once they come out. It is literally taking everything in me not to just eat this. It smells so good. So the cookies are about to come out of the oven right now. They've got like a minute left. I'm gonna show you one more little optional hack that can make the cookies look a little cuter if you want them to. So the cookies are done. They are golden on the edges, but still a little pale in the middle. And here is the hack. That's it. Well, I mean, do it a couple times. That act of smashing the pan against a surface like this, some people do it in the middle of baking every 2 minutes. You can do it when they come out of the oven right away. It forces the center of the cookie outwards where it's still soft and gives it a really lovely wrinkled effect where it kind of evens it out and just kind of goes just like that. These are done. I'm gonna let them cool and make them look all pretty. I'll clear the decks and we'll come back together in a minute. Guys, they're beautiful. I want, which one do I want? These are still like kind of warm. So these are out of the oven now. I let them sit on their trays for a couple of minutes just so that they could firm up for a minute, but then I let them completely cool on these racks, and then I sprinkled some salt on top. Typically you'd want to use like flaky finishing salt. I do not have flaky finishing salt, so I just used very chunky kosher salt to put on top. The addition of salt on the top is not just decorative, it actually acts really well as a balance against the caramel notes of the butter in the cookies, and it goes really well with the dark chocolate. If you're using a darker semi-sweet chocolate, it goes really, really well there. I swear to you guys, no matter what you've made before, no matter what Toll House recipe you have in your repertoire, brown butter cookies are where it's at. These are so good and addicting. And the nice thing is that you can make like a double batch of this recipe and put it in the freezer, and then you can just make 1 or 2 cookies off when you're craving something sweet just once. So if you want to do that, at the point where I put the bowl in the refrigerator so that the dough can set up, instead of doing that, just portion it immediately onto like a parchment lined baking sheet, pop it in the freezer, wait for the portions to freeze, and then you can put them in like individual plastic bags or like a gallon Ziploc bag or something like that. Leave it in the freezer, and then you can just still preheat your oven to 375, pull the frozen pieces out of the freezer, and bake them off like normal. It'll make a great cookie that way too. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you find this recipe super helpful. These are essentially just regular chocolate chip cookies, but elevated a little bit. So if you want to use just regular butter, you can definitely do that too, and follow all of the other kind of tips and tricks to get some beautiful chocolate chip cookies. But I definitely recommend browning your butter beforehand. Once you figure out how to brown your butter once, you're gonna put it in literally everything. I hope you guys try this out. If you do, please let me know. Send me a picture, tag me on Instagram or on Twitter. I would love to see them. All of the ingredients are gonna be listed in the description and on my blog, so I'll have that link down below as well. So thank you guys so much for hanging out in the kitchen with me. I hope you enjoyed. If you missed it, these are brown butter chocolate chip cookies as made by me, Amanda. And of course, we're gonna bust into one now. These are still like kind of warm. They're like crispy on the edge and like a little crunchy, but the inside is still like very soft and gooey. This is my perfect cookie. I could not wait for you guys to try this. I hope you do. I really hope you do. These are so good. These are so fucking good.